And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We're talking Red Bull now. A toxic team with another driver's career potentially down the toilet due to the absolute mishandling of them. Yes, I am talking about Liam Lawson going back to the Visa Cash Up, albeit whether you like him or you don't like him, or whether you agreed with him being chosen over Tsunoda. I think we can all agree the way the whole thing was handled was absolutely ridiculous, as was many other drivers that have been dealt with by Red Bull. Have they now become Team Toxic? And there we go. So breaking news. This is by no means a slight on the very talented Yuki Tsunoda. Congratulations, Yuki. You're going to be in a Red Bull for the Japanese Grand Prix. The but for that is, I hope it goes well. Good luck, as far as I'm concerned. And that's exactly what a certain Will Buxton has said. He said this is a new low in relation to the Liam Lawson debacle. He said 2 races is insane. Good luck, Yuki. You're gonna need it. And now he's not really affiliated with F1. I think he can be even more outspoken than needs to be. And this is obviously the article. He's obviously now the IndyCar presenter, but he used to be the Formula 1 presenter. And Buxton would take issue with the Red Bull team principal, Christian Horner. Speaking of, and this is just ridiculous, a duty of care to Lawson. A duty of care. Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. So we had, as you know, Liam Lawson had, let's be fair, very bad Australian-Chinese outings. Was there a reason for them? Potentially, yes. Australia, a wet race. China, a race he didn't even know after one practice session. I don't want to make excuses. Yes, I completely agree. You shouldn't be last in the Red Bull. But as we've mentioned, Liam Lawson is absolutely no slouch when it comes to racing. He was, yes, he didn't beat Yuki Tsunoda last year, but he was very close. And Christian Horner has been coming out, and Christian Horner's basically said, look, he said, we came into the season with 2 ambitious ambitions: to retain the Drivers' Championship and to reclaim the Constructors' title. Fair enough. Completely agree. And this is a purely sporting decision. But then he contradicts himself in a bit. I'll get to that. He said, we acknowledge there is a lot of work to be done with the RB21, and Yuki's experience will prove highly beneficial in helping to develop the current car. But it wasn't accepted that he had enough experience last year when Liam Lawson took his seat. And here we go. Here we go. We have a duty of care to protect and develop Liam. And together, we see that makes sense to act quickly so Liam can experience as he continues his F1 career. Yeah, with duty of care. Yet when you go to this one, it was a purely sporting decision. So, the ramblings of a crazy team principal, potentially. So Red Bull continuing to see promise in Lawson, apparently. He explained that the decision was a duty of care. Was it, though? I mean, how is it a duty of care, then, to put one driver in a very difficult team, as you know, in 2024, just 2 races in, take him away, instead of trying to solve the problem and give him a chance like you did with Alex Albon, Alex Albon, sort of, like you did with Sergio Perez year after year. And yet, is that because Liam Lawson doesn't offer any money like Sergio Perez potentially did? I don't know. It's been difficult to see Liam struggle with the RB21 at the first 2 races, and as a result, we've collectively taken the decision to make an early switch. We came in the 25 season with 2 ambitions. We've had that and the duty of care. Duty of care. I mean, the fact that, in my opinion, he's hiding behind that one way or another. Yeah, what a load of rubbish. However, Red Bull's reasoning has not been accepted by Buxton, who said this decision is a new low for a team which has never been shy to make tough decisions. And we'll get into those in a bit. Red Bull's talk of their duty of care is laughable, he wrote on social media. He said, you either believe in the driver you've signed and give them support, or you don't. Yeah. Completely agree. Interestingly, Helmut Marko has come out and he's confessed that that maybe they made the wrong call. He said he likened Liam Lawson to a battered boxer after 2 rounds of F1 25. Red Bull made a mistake in calling him up. That's nice, isn't it, Helmut? You know, say what you think as usual. Just get lost, I think, personally. I mean, he's, as I mentioned, he's so bad, I think, for this team at this point with the stuff he comes out with. And ultimately, Yes, rant incoming. I do apologise. Helmut Marko, he's in charge of the junior team. He is in... I mean, this is the amazing thing. He's in charge of the Red Bull Juniors, yet they cannot find a Red Bull Junior to go with Max Verstappen since Daniel Ricciardo left. You got your Pierre Gasly's? No. Alex Albon? No. Sergio Perez, okay, he wasn't a Red Bull Junior. No. But the interesting thing, they put Sergio Perez in because there was no one else. They thought there was no one else. And yeah, now they've got Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. Yuki wasn't good enough, and now Liam Lawson's not good enough. Yet this man's still employed. This man, Helmut Marko, is still employed, even though he's an absolute, when you look at it, abject failure at his job. So that's the verdict. Mistake. That's the verdict coming out of Red Bull Senior Advisor and Program Manager Helmut Marko after the decision was made to demote Liam Lawson. Now, after the departure of Sergio Perez, as we know, the New Zealander was there. People were happy, some people were not, some people thought, hey, you should have chosen Yuki Tsunoda, etc., etc. But for whatever reason, there was enough to convince Red Bull to make the change already. And Tsunoda now promoted from Racing Bulls alongside Max Verstappen. What happens though if Tsunoda has the same issue as Liam Lawson? What happens then? It almost seems like they're hiding the fact that their car has an issue. And yes, Max Verstappen has pretty much said as much, that there is an issue with the car. And they're hiding it behind the second driver. Yet Max is quite openly struggling with this car as well, just in spite of how good he is. So Marko was asked to explain why Liam Lawson was Red Bull's original pick, and he said, Yuki was too inconsistent. That's why we unanimously decided in favour of Lawson. But he wasn't able to perform under the great pressure, right? But he wasn't able to perform under the greater pressure right from the first day in Australia. No, it's your car as much as it is Lawson. It's your rubbish car. While Lawson had originally been called up to Red Bull, the belief was that he was best prepared mentally to handle alongside Verstappen. Marko said, then he went into a downward spiral. It's like a battered boxer. It's very difficult to get out of it. From that point of view, it was a mistake. Yeah, so it's a mistake to pick the driver that you made. So, I mean, maybe he should have gone, the onus, he's saying it was a mistake. But it's not really, I think, taking the full blame that he should. I mean, it was a mistake, yes, but you decided to pick him. Along, it was your team that decided to pick him. Your team that's given him absolutely no support out there. When you look in the interviews, the amount of times Christian Horner was standing up, and quite rightly so, for Sergio Perez being a good team principal. Here, he's like, nah. When they asked him about Japan, he didn't really say yes or no, did he? He didn't even give we are going to work it out with Liam Lawson. Just stay tuned, etc. And the Japanese Grand Prix is a race that Liam Lawson knows from his time in Japan. Now, the big rumour is coming out of this is that Liam Lawson, the rumour was that Liam Lawson is being dropped because Honda backing Yuki Tsunoda offered the money, but it had to be, 10 million was once again, this is a rumour, massive pinch of salt. I'm not saying this is fact, but Honda offered supposedly Red Bull, I think 10 million and maybe even more, but if they're going to do that, it had to be for Japan. Yeah, obviously, Christian Horner's not going to say that, is he? This is quite interesting as well. This is RBR Daily. Max Verstappen liked this post by Guido van der Garde regarding Liam Lawson. He said, I'm getting tired of all the comments that F1 is the toughest sport in terms of performances, and when you underdeliver, you've got to face the consequences. He said, yes, you've got to perform. Yes, the pressure is insane, but in my opinion, this comes closer to bullying or a panic move than actual high athlete achievements. I completely agree. They made a decision, fully aware, gave Liam 2 races only to crush his spirit. Yep, absolutely. Don't forget the dedication, hard work and success Liam has put in his career so far to achieve the level where he is now. Absolutely, it's not easy to get where Liam is, and he's not someone that has a massive financial backing. And he said, I remember my own blood, sweat and tears, and that was to reach F1, let alone driving for an absolute top team. He said, yes, he underperformed in the first 2 races, but if anyone's aware of that, it's himself. Perhaps he's suggested this himself, but if not, I wish Liam all the strength and courage to get on the grid in Japan, trust yourself, get your head up and prove them wrong. What happens if Liam Lawson qualifies Yuki Tsunoda in Japan? It's going to be a lot of egg and face, isn't it? And there's going to be a lot of egg and face. I thought, I thought this was quite interesting as well. Hit or miss Red Bull's previous in-season driver swaps. Hit or miss. 25, we had Red Bull, Vitantonio Liuzzi and Christian Clean swap. And they're saying it was a miss. An unusual move of signing 2 second drivers, and that basically went alongside David Coulthard. And after one of these blocks of police, Clean emerged as the preferred driver for the remainder of the season. Liuzzi had to wait for a full-time drive to emerge, and that was 2006 when the Minardi team were bought by the Toro Rosso team. A travesty, in my opinion. I'd love there still to be Minardi, but I understand if they couldn't carry on, it is a shame. But yeah, and they're saying in conclusion it was a arrangement that didn't particularly work for either driver, and while he did not gain access to the front-running machinery in his career, Liuzzi was the driver of the two to go on to start more races in Formula 1. Christian Clean out, Robert Dornbus in. They put with Mark Webber, he was already signed to become a Red Bull driver for the 07 season. Clean talked himself out of the drive for the final 3 races when he publicly turned down an offer to race for a Red Bull-backed IndyCar drive the following season. So, because he wasn't going to race for an IndyCar team the following season, they opted to end his season early and drafting Robert Dornbus. But yeah, well done. Nice one, Red Bull. Well done there. Classy. As Dornbus faced the same situation as Franco Colapinto, turned 24, arriving on the grid knowing a race seat would be unavailable for him. With just 3 races to prove himself, it would be unfair to label this a hit or miss. Fair enough. I think it was a miss because of the way they did it. Ridiculous. Red Bull again. 2007, Toro Rosso, Scott Speed out. Sebastian Vettel in. They're saying it's a hit, but it's, yeah, it probably was, because look how good Sebastian Vettel did. But Scott Speed and Toro Rosso team boss Frantos reportedly did not get on during their time together. With Speed having not registered a point in his season and a half in Formula 1, the decision to bring Vettel was made. And given Vettel went on to become a 4-time champion, it wasn't too bad. And so they're saying that a hit. But there was slight controversies, I think. You might want to Google it. I'm not going to get into it too much here on Speed, because I don't know how much of it is fact. But anyway, 2009, Toro Rosso, Sebastian Bourdais for Jaime Alguersuari. They're saying miss. And they're saying if the bar for Red Bull Juniors is to make it to the senior team, then Jaime Alguersuari's time has to be labelled miss in this category. He replaced Sebastian Bourdais, a absolute star in IndyCar, but he was something of a record breaker upon his arrival. The Spanish driver, at the age of 19 and 125 days, was the youngest person to ever take part in a Grand Prix at that point, until obviously Verstappen came along and blew it away, and then yeah, and he steadily grew in his time. His time with the Red Bull sister team was certainly no failure. He outscored his teammate Sebastian Buemi by the 2011 campaign in his second full season with the team. But with no room upwards at Red Bull, as you had obviously Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel dominating that championship, he and Buemi, for some reason, were both out. Yeah, see you later, as they freshened up their lineup. Au revoir, goodbye. 2016, Red Bull, Danny Kvyat out, Max Verstappen. It was a hit. I think for those of us observing, it was hard not to feel for Danny as he moved aside from Max. Kvyat had been beaten and informed Dan Ricciardo in the point standings in 2015 and scored a podium in China in early 2016. But this swap to bring the Dutchman to Red Bull appeared to be one of looking to promote what turned out to be, I mean, ultimately, they were going to promote Verstappen, whatever. They were just looking for an excuse, understandably. And obviously, we know how good Verstappen was, and it was, I'm not saying it was a bad move because it worked out really well, but they were just looking for an excuse. Now, 2017, Danny Kvyat out, Pierre Gasly out, Brendan Hartley both in, hit and miss. So the 2017, they're saying, was something of a frantic campaign for Toro Rosso. Danny Kvyat dropped for the reigning GP2 champion, Pierre Gasly, before being brought back in again to substitute 2 races while the young Frenchman completed the Super Formula season. Now on the other side of the garage, Sainz departed the team early as he made a move with Renault. I mean, they were never going to give him, I mean, that's another thing with Carlos Sainz. They never wanted to give him the Red Bull thing because there were things between him and Verstappen. And clearly it was in the too hard box for Red Bull. Even now, a lot of people are suggesting, should Carlos Sainz have been the choice for the Red Bull team? A lot of people are suggesting yes, but once again, in the too hard box, because the rumours are that him and Max Verstappen would not get on with each other. Anyway, the article has this as a miss, based on obviously Gasly performing well enough to be promoted to the Red Bull outfit, a hit and miss. So a hit, sorry. With the AlphaTauri team after his subsequent demotion. And while Hartley was unable to quite make the same impact, leaving Formula 1 at the end of 2018 with just 4 points. He picked up where he left off in sports cars though. Brendan Hartley, talented, I think. Red Bull, Pierre Gasly out, Alex Albon in. They're saying miss. Albon was elevated to Red Bull from Toro Rosso just half a season into his Formula 1 career. And if you remember, Alex Albon was dropped from the Red Bull Junior team and then hired again because they realised, oh no, we haven't done a good enough job. There's no one that we can use. Well done, Helmut Marko. Now, Albon was consistent in the remainder of the 2019 season, only finishing outside the top 6 once in the final 10 races. But the 2020 campaign proved more of a struggle. Now, despite earning his first podium in Formula 1, the Thai driver faced a looming issue from outside the team, as Sergio Perez was in the form of his life and without a seat in 2021, as Aston Martin decided not to sack Lance Stroll. Wasn't bringing Sebastian Vettel, let's be fair. They weren't going to get rid of Lance Stroll, were they? That's the reason why Sergio Perez lost the Aston Martin drive. Ultimately, with less than half of Verstappen's points total at the end of 2020, Albon was moved back into a reserve role. Thank goodness he signed for Williams, and look how good he's doing now. Different team, just saying. 2023, Nick de Vries out, Daniel Ricciardo in. They're saying miss. So it was an impressive Formula 1 debut for Nick de Vries, former F2 and FE champion. He was signed to AlphaTauri in a departure from Red Bull, looking at their junior program for 23. This is another guy outside, I think, wasn't he? Yeah. And midway through the season, though, he was not matching up to Tsunoda and was abruptly moved aside. Another one for Daniel Ricciardo. The Honey Badger, though, started solidly, but broke his hand in Zandvoort. That ruled him out. Liam Lawson came in, showed us how awesome he is, and then came back in 24, didn't quite match up, and was gone. So, they're saying Daniel Ricciardo out Liam Lawson in, despite having been potentially spoken about as a Red Bull contender again earlier in his second stint with the sister team. Daniel Ricciardo could not make his pace of old. Liam Lawson, who deputised for Ricciardo after his broken hand, was given another shot to succeed in what effectively turned out to be an audition for the Red Bull team. Given it was Lawson who was handed the drive over Tsunoda, the metric of a swap seeing the sister team driver promoted. And then Liam Lawson out, Yuki in. We're going to have to wait and see. We've spoken all about that, sadly. I mean, well done to Yuki Tsunoda. Absolutely. We really feel for Liam Lawson. The way it's handled, as usual with Red Bull, an absolute travesty. But as we've seen in the past, they cannot manage their drivers, most of their drivers, properly. There's a few special ones. Ricciardo at the time, maybe Mark Webber. But even there were issues there, weren't there? And obviously, Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel. It's just really sad and really disappointing. But there we go. That's what I would expect. Nothing less from Helmut Marko. So, on that, if you made it to the end of the rant, please give us a subscribe if you're not. Thank you very much. But you just watching this video is more than enough for us. But until then, we will speak to you soon. Thank you for watching. But above all else, stay safe. I have pressed the wrong button. I pressed subscribe again. No, this is the outro. See you later.